Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I want to talk to you about the power of silence. There are moments in life when words should not flow, but when they should be held back. When silence speaks louder than anything we could say. It is in these moments, in these 5 situations, where silence becomes not just a choice, but a profound necessity. First, let us understand something about silence. It is not merely the absence of sound. Silence is a force. It is a moment of reflection. It is the stillness that allows us to gather our thoughts, to collect our emotions, to determine our actions. Silence, when used appropriately, has the power to bring clarity, wisdom, and understanding. But silence is not for every situation. There are times when our voice, our words, our opinions may do more harm than good. Therefore, we must learn the art of knowing when to speak and, more importantly, when to remain silent. The first situation in which silence is not just appropriate but essential is when you are angry. Anger is a powerful emotion, and in the heat of anger, words can become weapons. When we speak out of anger, we often say things that we do not mean. We hurt others. We destroy relationships. We create barriers that may take a lifetime to rebuild. But silence in the midst of anger can preserve our dignity and protect our relationships. It is in these moments of heated emotion that we must choose to hold our tongue. We must choose to be still and allow our emotions to settle. The truth is, our anger will pass, but the damage caused by our words can remain long after the anger has subsided. In moments of anger, silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is knowing that our words in that moment would not reflect the true state of our heart. The second situation in which silence is powerful is when we are uncertain. How many times have we spoken without fully understanding the situation? How often do we find ourselves making decisions without the full knowledge or understanding of all the facts? Silence in these moments is an act of humility. It is a recognition that we do not have all the answers, that we are not in control, and that sometimes the best course of action is to listen and learn. Silence allows us to gather the wisdom we need before we speak. It prevents us from making decisions based on incomplete information, and it gives us the opportunity to seek guidance, to reflect, and to gain clarity before we step forward. In these moments, speaking without knowledge can lead to regret, but silence can lead to revelation. The third situation is when we are confronted with criticism. How do we respond when others point out our flaws or mistakes? Our natural instinct might be to defend ourselves, to justify our actions, or to explain why we did what we did. But in the face of criticism, silence is often the best response. When we speak in response to criticism, we can easily fall into the trap of defending ourselves. And in doing so, we may miss the opportunity to truly hear the message being conveyed. Silence gives us the space to reflect on the criticism, to determine whether there is truth in it, and to take responsibility for our actions. It allows us to be humble enough to learn and to grow instead of being caught up in our pride. Often when we remain silent in the face of criticism, we create an environment in which we can transform, and in that silence we find the strength to change. The fourth situation where silence holds great power is when we are dealing with someone who is grieving. Grief is a deeply personal and painful experience. It is a time when words, no matter how well-intentioned, can often fall short. In the face of loss, silence speaks volumes. Silence says, I am here with you. It says, I understand your pain. It says, I am not here to offer solutions, but to simply be present. Sometimes our desire to comfort others with words can cause more harm than good. We want to say something that will make the pain go away, but the truth is no words can undo the hurt. In these moments, silence is not a sign of coldness or indifference. It is a demonstration of empathy. It is the understanding that some emotions cannot be fixed with words, but can only be shared in silence. When someone is grieving, let us not rush to fill the space with words, but let us simply sit in that silence, allowing the person to know they are not alone. The fifth and final situation where silence is not only appropriate but necessary is when we are in the presence of wisdom. There are moments in life when we encounter people who possess a level of understanding and insight far beyond our own. These are moments when our silence becomes an act of respect. When you are in the presence of wisdom, the best thing you can do is listen. Let us not be so quick to speak or offer our own opinions, for in the presence of wisdom, our words are insignificant. It is in silence that we allow ourselves to be taught, to be shaped, and to be transformed. Silence in the presence of wisdom is a declaration that we recognize the value of what is being shared, and we honor it by not interrupting or overshadowing it. Silence in this context is the key that opens the door to understanding. Now, I understand that these situations may be challenging. It is not always easy to remain silent, especially when we feel the urge to speak, to defend, to explain, or to comfort. But we must recognize the power that silence holds. It is in our silence that we find strength. It is in our silence that we demonstrate wisdom. It is in our silence that we build relationships, heal wounds, and grow in understanding. So let us learn to embrace silence. Let us recognize the moments when our words will only cloud the situation and the moments when silence will bring clarity. Let us use silence as a tool for growth, for healing, and for transformation. Remember, silence is not the absence of communication. It is the presence of understanding. It is a language that speaks directly to the heart. And sometimes it is the most powerful message we can give. In closing, I leave you with this thought. The ability to remain silent in the right moments is not just about holding back words. It is about exercising wisdom, restraint, and respect. It is about understanding that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is say nothing at all. When we experience anger, it often clouds our judgment and distorts our ability to see things clearly. The emotion is so intense that it can make us feel as though we must speak immediately, as though our words are the only way to release the pressure building within us. However, in those heated moments, silence is not just a choice. It is a safeguard for our relationships and our dignity. Anger has a way of pushing us into a corner, making us feel justified in our outbursts. But when we speak out of anger, we risk saying things that are harsh, hurtful, or untrue. The things we say in those moments might not reflect our true feelings. They are often a product of the heightened emotions that cloud our minds. Words spoken in anger can cause deep wounds, and unlike physical scars, emotional wounds are not as easily healed. Once something is said, it cannot be taken back, no matter how much we may wish to. The damage that comes from words spoken in anger can last for years, sometimes even a lifetime. Friendships, families, and professional relationships have been broken because of something said in the heat of the moment. It is far too easy to allow frustration to spill out, and the consequences can be devastating. Choosing silence in those moments is not a sign of weakness. It is an exercise of strength and discipline. It takes real self-control to hold back words that feel as though they need to be said. But when we resist the urge to speak in anger, we are giving ourselves the opportunity to reflect, to calm down, and to think more clearly. Silence gives us the space to allow the intensity of the emotion to subside, allowing our rational mind to take the lead rather than the impulse of anger. In those moments, silence gives us the time we need to process our feeling. It creates the opportunity for us to reflect on whether what we are about to say is necessary, helpful, or kind. It allows us to consider the impact our words will have on others and whether they will solve the issue at hand or simply escalate the conflict further. When we are uncertain, when we do not have all the information, speaking without clarity can be dangerous. In such moments, our instinct might be to fill the silence with words, to assert ourselves, or to make an attempt at offering solutions. But often the wisest course of action is to remain silent. Silence in uncertainty gives us the time and space we need to collect the necessary knowledge, reflect on the facts, and consider the best path forward. Speaking prematurely in the face of uncertainty can lead to missteps, misunderstandings, and decisions we later regret. The danger lies not only in the words we choose, but also in the potential for spreading misinformation or making promises we cannot fulfill. Silence prevents us from rushing into something we may not fully understand, and it ensures that our words, when they finally come, are thoughtful, well-considered, and rooted in truth. In times of uncertainty, we are often tempted to speak out of fear that we will appear uninformed or weak if we don't say something. However, the true strength comes from acknowledging that we do not have all the answers. By choosing silence, we demonstrate maturity and wisdom. It is a recognition that knowledge takes time to acquire and that it is okay to pause before acting. Sometimes the best decision is to wait, to listen, and to learn. Silence in uncertainty also allows us to gather different perspectives. When we do not know everything, it is important to remain open to other viewpoints, to listen deeply, and to process the information before making any conclusions. It gives us the chance to ask questions, to explore, and to understand the bigger picture. Instead of rushing to speak, we choose to absorb, to understand, and to make informed choices. Moreover, silence in uncertain times gives us room for internal reflection. It allows us to clear our thoughts and center ourselves. The temptation to speak out of confusion often leads to more confusion, but in silence, we regain clarity. Our minds settle and our understanding deepens. By holding back, we give ourselves the opportunity to process the complexity of the situation and to formulate responses that are grounded in truth and wisdom. When confronted with criticism, our first instinct is often to defend ourselves. We want to explain our actions, justify our decisions, or point out the context that might have been misunderstood. However, in the face of criticism, silence can be a powerful response, offering us the opportunity to grow and learn from the situation. Responding immediately to criticism, particularly with defensiveness, often clouds our ability to fully process the feedback being offered. It can turn a moment of potential growth into a confrontation, and in doing so, we miss the opportunity to reflect and improve. Criticism, though difficult to hear, can be a mirror that reflects back to us areas in which we need to grow. It is a gift, though not always wrapped in the way we would prefer, because it offers a chance to understand how others perceive our actions and to make necessary changes. But if we immediately counter that criticism with a defensive response, we may fail to see its true value. Instead of allowing the criticism to settle and reflect upon it with an open mind, we close ourselves off to the lessons it may offer. Silence in these moments serves as a space to pause. It gives us time to separate our emotions from the message being conveyed. When we remain silent, we create a gap between the emotional response to the criticism and the opportunity to process it rationally. This moment of quiet allows us to assess the criticism objectively, to ask ourselves whether it contains truth, and to determine if it offers us a chance to improve. Often, in those few moments of silence, we realize that the feedback, though painful, is necessary for our growth. Additionally, silence can demonstrate maturity and self-control. By not reacting impulsively to criticism, we show that we are secure enough in ourselves to listen and learn rather than to immediately fight back. It signals that we value the perspective of others, even when it is uncomfortable. Silence in the face of criticism speaks volumes. It conveys a willingness to understand and a readiness to improve. Rather than rushing to respond, we should give ourselves the gift of silence. It is not about conceding defeat or admitting failure. It is about creating the space for reflection and making the conscious choice to engage with criticism in a way that fosters growth rather than resentment. When someone is grieving, the natural instinct might be to offer words of comfort or try to lighten the burden of their sorrow. We may feel that we must say something to make them feel better or to ease their pain. But grief is a complex and deeply personal experience. And in such moments, silence can often be the most powerful expression of compassion and empathy. In the face of loss, words can feel hollow, inadequate, or even intrusive. Sometimes what a grieving person needs most is not advice or consolation, but simply someone who will be there in quiet solidarity, offering presence rather than speech. Silence in the presence of grief is not an absence of care, but a deep recognition of the weight of what the person is going through. When we remain silent, we are acknowledging that the pain they feel is beyond what words can fully express or alleviate. In this silence, we communicate that we are there to share in their sorrow, not to fix it. Grief is not something that can be solved by a few comforting words or reassurances, especially when the loss is profound. Sometimes the most meaningful thing we can do is to sit beside someone, offer our support through our presence, and simply listen if they choose to speak. Trying to fill the silence with words can sometimes make the person feel as though their grief is being minimized or misunderstood. Often, in their sorrow, they are not looking for solutions, but for understanding and compassion. Silence provides them with the space to process their emotions, to express their grief in their own time, and to reflect on their loss without feeling rushed or pressured to move through their pain quickly. When we remain silent, we are giving them permission to grieve at their own pace, without the expectation that they need to get over it or find closure immediately. Moreover, silence in grief allows us to be present in a way that words often cannot. Our quiet presence communicates support, love, and solidarity. Sometimes just knowing that someone is there, offering a listening ear or a shoulder to lean on, speaks volumes more than any comforting phrase ever could. Silence in such moments is a way of honoring the person's emotional journey, showing that we respect their process and are willing to walk beside them, even in the quietest moments of their grief. When we are in the presence of wisdom, silence becomes a sign of respect. Often we are so eager to share our own thoughts, ideas, and opinions that we fail to recognize the value of simply listening. Wisdom is not found in the quick, impulsive words of those who speak without reflection, but in the words of those who have lived, learned, and carefully considered their experiences. In these moments, silence is not a form of emptiness, but rather a space that allows us to fully absorb the richness of the knowledge being shared. It is in silence that we give ourselves the opportunity to take in what is being offered to us and to reflect upon its deeper meaning. Listening in the presence of wisdom requires patience and humility. It is acknowledging that we do not have all the answers, and that there is something to be learned from those who have walked a different path. When we remain silent, we open ourselves to the possibility of transformation. We allow ourselves to be shaped by the insights, experiences, and perspectives of others. Silence, in this sense, is an act of receptivity. It demonstrates our willingness to be taught, to grow, and to develop in ways that we might not have anticipated. By listening without interruption, we honor the wisdom of the other person and create an environment where learning can occur. Speaking too quickly in the presence of wisdom can dilute its impact. Our words, no matter how well-intentioned, can sometimes disrupt the flow of valuable insight. When we are overly eager to share our own thoughts, we may miss the point or fail to fully grasp the depth of what is being communicated. Silence allows the wisdom to unfold naturally without being hindered by our own need to contribute. It allows us to stay present, to be fully engaged, and to receive the message in its entirety. Moreover, silence in these moments also allows us to process what we have heard. Sometimes wisdom is not meant to be immediately understood or acted upon. It requires reflection, contemplation, and time to internalize. In the silence, we give ourselves the space to let the words resonate within us and to consider how they apply to our own lives. It is through this thoughtful silence that we truly absorb the value of wisdom and are able to make it our own. In life, there are countless situations where our words can either build or destroy, heal or harm, bring understanding or create confusion. It is not simply enough to speak. We must also learn the art of silence. Silence, when used wisely, becomes a tool of tremendous power. It allows us to navigate the complexities of emotions, relationships, and wisdom with grace and humility. In every aspect of life, from moments of anger to times of grief, silence plays a critical role in shaping our responses, guiding our actions, and fostering deeper connections with others. In moments of anger, silence becomes a protective shield. Rather than allowing our emotions to dictate harmful words, silence allows us to pause, to reflect, and to choose our actions thoughtfully. It prevents us from causing irreversible damage to relationships and helps us to regain control over our emotions. It is often said that words spoken in anger can never be taken back, but silence offers us the opportunity to regain composure and prevent harm. This choice of restraint is not a sign of weakness, but of immense strength, discipline, and wisdom. When we are uncertain, silence is our greatest ally. It grants us the space to gather information, process our thoughts, and reflect on our decisions before speaking or acting. In the absence of knowledge or clarity, our words may only complicate matters. Silence allows us to take a step back and approach the situation with a clearer mind and a better understanding. Instead of speaking out of fear or insecurity, we embrace the wisdom that comes with thoughtful consideration, allowing us to make decisions that are more informed and deliberate. Criticism, while difficult to endure, also offers a valuable opportunity for personal growth. In the face of criticism, our immediate reaction may be to defend ourselves, but silence is often the more powerful response. By resisting the urge to react defensively, we give ourselves the opportunity to listen deeply and reflect on the validity of the feedback we are receiving. It allows us to process the criticism with an open mind and in turn become better versions of ourselves. Silence fosters humility, understanding, and self-awareness, creating a space for growth instead of conflict. In times of grief, silence becomes a profound act of empathy. Sometimes the most meaningful way to support someone who is grieving is not through words, but by being present and allowing them the space to process their emotions. Grief is a deeply personal experience, and while we may feel compelled to comfort or console with our words, often what is most needed is simply a quiet presence. Silence communicates that we respect their pain, that we are there to listen, and that we understand that no words can truly ease the depth of their sorrow. Finally, in the presence of wisdom, silence becomes an expression of reverence. Wisdom cultivated through experience and reflection should be honored by our attentive silence. When we choose to listen without interruption, we open ourselves to learning, growth, and transformation. Wisdom speaks not just in words, but in the silence that follows, giving us the time to reflect and internalize what we have learned. By embracing silence in the presence of wisdom, we recognize the value of the knowledge being shared and the importance of allowing it to sink in fully. In every one of these situations, silence is not an absence, but a presence. It is a choice to step back, to reflect, and to act with greater clarity and intention. Silence is not passive, it is active and powerful. It fosters connection, understanding, and wisdom. By learning when to remain silent, we unlock the potential to navigate life's challenges with grace and strength. Silence is not simply the absence of speech, it is the presence of wisdom, humility, and thoughtful consideration. And in those moments when words fall short, silence will always speak louder than we can imagine.